afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Marco Island Center for the Arts. My name is Hyla Crane, and I'm the Executive Director. And this afternoon, we are going to be talking with artist Terry Carter. Now, Terry Carter is new to the Art Center family, and his work is presently on display in our gallery with our exhibition entitled March through July 2020 Artistic Reflections, all work created by artists during that rather unforgettable time frame. So Terry is with us. Hi, Terry, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
That's great. Now, Terry, you're fairly new to the area, is that correct?
Certainly the Marco area. So I lived in Florida. We lived in Florida 10 years, but 30 miles up the road, 40 miles up the road.
Okay, well, we welcome you to Collier County and certainly to Marco Island Center for the Arts. And why don't you tell us a little bit about the artwork that's in our exhibition right now? Now, as we can see, one of the paintings is directly behind me, and this actually won an award in our show. The show was judged. You want to speak to us about the piece behind me right now?
The painting behind you is an acrylic painting, and it's 40 by 30. It is a painting that I actually started during the pandemic, and it's called Two Red Alligators, which sounds odd, but as we're standing right here, and I'm looking out the back part of my studio, there are two alligators right at my window looking at each other exactly like they are on the painting. And they have decided they like this as their home. And we've all laughed about it. Anybody that's been to the house is thinking, do they pay rent? What do they do? But in the evening, they get in the water, and then during the day, they are lying right beneath the windows that look out on the lake. Then the painting was about the two alligators. And when I start painting, I always start with something. And the reason I do is because a blank canvas freaks me out. And so the person I was apprenticed to for 3 years always said, just put something on the canvas. Don't worry about it. Here I put a little gesso and a blob of green paint, but that's actually how I start, and that's actually how I started with the two alligator painting that you've got behind you. And the part of the alligators that is red was the part of the major part of my blob that I put on, and then the rest of the painting then came along as I was starting to think and look at the painting. I got the first third done easily, and when I got the green water, and when I was down at on North or South Collier, where the hotels are, and I was out looking at the water looked more green than it did blue. So I thought, well, I can do that green, that'll be right, good. When I got done with the first third of the painting, then I was stuck, and I thought, well, what in the hell do I do now? As I was leaving, and I walked up the boardwalk all the way up to where our parking lot is, I looked up and I thought, well, maybe my alligators could be here. Why not? So that's how the second third of the painting came along, is high rises. Again, taking a lot of liberty on the high rises. And then the third part, the upper part, was again relatively easy. One of the things that I was taught early on is when you do a painting, at some point turn it upside down. Turn it up so you see it's balanced. And that's what I try to do with most of my stuff, is make sure that it gets balanced. And that's how the top part came in, because if you turn that painting upside down, you will see two alligators in the sky. So that's how it works and why I felt when I was completed that the painting was ready for the public. And I like it. I think it's kind of fun. And people think it's strange, but that's why I like it.
I think it's beautiful. Can you tell us a little bit? We can only bring one upstairs to our studio for today because we're running around. But you have two other paintings that are in the show at this time. Can you just tell us a little bit about them? Just give people a little tidbit of information because we want to tempt them to come down and see all the work live, as it were, because we are abiding by all safety protocols, making it safe for you when you come to visit the Art Center. Masks, social distancing, deep cleaning. So please feel safe to come see the exhibition. So Terry, why don't you tell us a little bit about the other two pieces that are in the exhibit?
The other one that I painted right at the endemic of the pandemic is called Sea Urchins, and it was at Tiger Tail Beach. And I went down to Tiger Tail Beach just at the very beginning of this, and they were letting a few people on, but you couldn't bring a chair, you couldn't bring anything. And I walked down, and the water was so high on Tiger Tail that there were all kinds of things in the water and the wet sand. And there were actually some sea urchins there. And I thought, well, that would be interesting because I've never seen them before as many times as I've been to Tiger Tail. And so that's where the idea came from for the sea creatures is what I called the painting. And again, it's a painting that, and I cheated. I took a picture of it so I could speak to it. But again, it's a picture that when I paint, I need something on the canvas, and I need to do a layer of color. Not all the whole canvas, but I put on a layer of color so that I can work from that point. And this happened to be the base was gray. The red part was there, but the rest of the painting was gray. And when you look at it in the gallery, you'll see there's actually still some of the original gray on the painting, on the upper third of the painting. And one of the other things that you will see in all the work I do is I have a base point for my paintings. And it can be at the bottom, it can be at the top, it can be on left or right or down the center, it doesn't matter, horizontal or vertical. But you will be able to follow a base point. Behind you, the base point is just before the condominiums. And if you can follow that gray line all the way across, even though it stops and starts again, but it is a line. And the reason for that is when you're looking at your gallery and you're looking at a painting, if you don't have something that stops your eye, you go on to the next painting. And hopefully by doing that, I get the person who is viewing the painting a second chance to look at it, and then maybe actually be able to come close to it and look at the depth of the painting, look at the brush strokes, and look at this. There's a lot of painting in that one done with these wonderful spatulas that I use. And I use a lot of things when I'm painting. I use spatulas, of course, lots of brushes, and that's how I get to the complete painting. There's a lot of yellow in this painting, and I mixed almost all the kinds of yellow together to get the varying shades. But there's also in this painting, this is a collage, an acrylic collage, and there is a netting on the bottom part of this painting. And when you get up into it in the gallery and you see it, you can actually touch the netting. When you step back.
This is like a multimedia piece. It's not simply an acrylic painting. This is something that you've worked other elements into. Is that what you're saying?
I've always liked to add stuff to the painting. I like to do things that make it maybe more interesting for the viewer. And so I like collages, and I do a lot of them. This one just happens to be the one that I was lucky enough that you chose, so it got to show a different dimension of the kind of work that I do. And the third one is called San Francisco, and I lived in San Francisco twice during my life and loved both times I lived there. And if I was lucky enough to ever have a day off, which was rare, I'd walk the streets of the city, and San Francisco is constantly buildings and looks and shapes and verticals and horizontals, and it's like a Baroque painting every place you look. And it's why I love to go back to San Francisco in art. And you notice on this painting, which when hopefully you come to the art gallery, you'll see it. It's orange, and orange is a color that I'm afraid of. I don't use it very often. And although there is certainly some orange in the painting behind you, the painting of San Francisco is very orange.
Yes, it is.
And I did that on purpose to push myself, because I think that I shouldn't leave a color out of my tray and not use it. And so that's how that painting really took the orange and the yellow. And again, you'll see there where the hill is, going up the hill, there's a baseline in the painting. You'll see that in the sea urchins painting. There's a baseline in the painting. And again, that's part of the training that I received from this wonderful artist that I was apprenticed to for 3 years. And she tried to teach me everything she knew. I don't think I will ever learn everything she knew. But
and who was this artist who was such an important influence on you?
Excuse me?
Who was this artist who was such an important influence?
Her name is Elsa Warner, and she's quite famous in the California art market. She was a it's called a mid-century modernist, and she's got paintings in lots of collections and everything. And the reason she smartly worked with young people, which I was at that point, was because art doesn't always guarantee you a retirement. And so that's why I think you see so many artists go into teaching, because you can, at least there'll be money coming in to pay the rent and buy the food. So
well, of course, we have a lot of our artists who teach here at the Marco Island Center for the Arts, because not only are we a place where artists show their work, but we have a lot of art students, both adults and children. So we are providing those opportunities for our working artists who are also teaching instructors, teaching artists to come and work for us. But that's wonderful. Do you ever feel like you should be mentoring a young student, passing it on?
No.
No.
No, I'm too selfish. I want to paint myself. The other thing is, after I finished with that part of my education, I went on to university, and I have a degree in painting, fine painting and art. And I think that's interesting for people who come to the gallery to look, because artists have all kinds of different backgrounds. And just because you've got a college degree or any kind of art school degree doesn't mean you're great. And so many of the artists that I meet and are with have never had any formal training. They're just born artists, and they do wonderful work. And so, but I think that's interesting for the viewers to know that there's lots of ways you can go. Although most of the people that are going to watch this, I'm sure, are already artists. There's lots. You don't have to have a formal education in order to be a good painter.
And that's true. I know a lot of our artists who are people who this has always been innate within them. And while some people have formal art training, a lot of our artists may have done different things in their lives and now have come back and are working artists. Now, I happen to know, because we've talked before, you've done a lot of things as well as being an artist over time. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've done, I paid the rent and bought the food with several different careers. I worked in San Francisco as a buyer, and I worked in Los Angeles for a cruise line in their head office, and was moved all over the country. In 1 year, when you're here. 1 year I was in Detroit, Chicago twice, and which gave me a good chance to see different museums and different kinds of buildings and different looks. And I really enjoyed that. I was thrilled when I was able to go full-time into painting, and I've been painting now for 22 years, except for 5 years I worked for Robin Stuckey as a designer. But other than that, I have worked only on painting, which is, it's such a wonderful gift to be able to do that. And your people that I've watched on the art talks on the other days have been able to do that as well. And it's a real blessing to be able to do that.
Well, we are very lucky. We have some extraordinary artists here on Marco, throughout Naples, in Collier County, and we're very excited to provide, again, opportunities where people can show their work, opportunities for artists who want to teach, and yes, it is a blessing to be able to pursue an interest, and a vocation, as it were, at this point in time. Now, I know that the painting here is acrylic, and you talked about your sea urchin being using other mediums, sort of a mixed medium piece. But do you work exclusively in acrylics, or do you work in other mediums when you're painting?
That painting probably has more Elmer's glue on it than paint, but it's, when I started it, after I went back the second day back to Tiger Tail Beach, and it looked totally different the second day, and I thought, well, God, my painting doesn't look at all like this now. And so I thought, I need to get some depth and some feeling, some texture in the painting, and that's why I did the netting on that painting. Other than that, it's 100% acrylics. Even though I've spent more years doing watercolors than I have acrylics, only time I do watercolors is when if I'm traveling. I always take one of these with me, and I've probably gone through 60 or 70 of these in my time in traveling with work. And when I used to have to go out on sales calls, and I'd be with people all day long, and I just wanted to go to Burger King and get a Whopper and go back to my hotel room and dabble in my watercolors.
Have you done any work in oil as well too?
I worked in oil when I first started with Elsa Warner. She did not work in acrylics at all. She thought they were just not up to artists' needs. And so I worked for the 3 years I was with her, and the 4.5 years I was at Cal State University in Long Beach. That we only were allowed to work in oil when you were in the painting program. And so when I got out of there, I was able to break the mold, and I love acrylics. Acrylics got me everything I wanted to that oil got me, and it got me everything I love about watercolors. They got that. You can mix it, you can make it a watery base. When I start a new painting, oftentimes I will just do a very watery base of paint and water and let it dry, and then start painting on top of that. And I'm a great fan of gesso. I look at it like a secretary who uses whiteout when she makes mistakes, if they say. But gesso to me is the great whiteout, and it covers all my sins.
That's fantastic. Well, what are you working on now? Is there anything? I see we're in your studio. I don't want you to turn around because I don't want to lose being able to hear you. But are there projects you're working on now?
This happens to be a painting of where my brother lives in Mexico, and he is a wood artist, and this is his description of where he lives, and that was just on telephone talking back and forth. And when he finally saw, I sent him a picture of the painting, and he said he should be so lucky to live like that. So it's really not like he lives, I have an understanding. And a lot of things I'm doing, like this, is just a group of colors that I collect and have for years collected beautiful photographs, mainly from Jeffrey Deacon, but also from Cole Weston. And I look at them as painters, not as photographers. And when I see their work, it's amazing. And Jeffrey Beacon, whose main interest is in Mexican art, Mexican villages. And he specializes in doors and windows and walls. Who ever think you could make a living out of taking pictures of walls? But he's made a very good living out of it. But it is beautiful, and I have tried and tried in the 20 years I've been painting a lot to get the tones that he's able to achieve with the camera. And it's almost impossible because these buildings have paint that's been painted over and over and over and over again, and you're seeing layer after layer after layer after paint wear off on these buildings. And so the colors that he's able to achieve, I haven't been able to achieve yet, but I've been working on it, and I do a lot of paintings that way, and then paint over them again, because if I don't get the look that I'm looking for, and that's not a sin.
Well, Terry, I have to thank you for joining us here today. We are thrilled to have your work in our gallery. We look forward to seeing more of your work here at the Marco Island Center for the Arts. And we thank you for sharing your studio with us and our friends, our Art Center friends today. So everybody, I want to thank you for joining us. I thank Terry again, and we will be back on Thursday with artist, let's see if I get it right, Joanne Sanborn, our Everglades artist here on Marco Island, who has two rather unique pieces in our exhibition. And when we show them to you on our wall, you might not recognize them as Joanne's piece. So Terry, we want to say goodbye. We will talk to you soon. And to our audience, we look forward to seeing you again on Thursday at 4 o'clock on Facebook. Bye-bye, everybody.